Okay, so hello everyone. So thank you for attending this webinar, which will give you an overview of performing an ISO internal audit. My name is Pereira da Cruz, and I'm an author at 𝗪𝗲𝗏. I do quite a lot of ISO 9001 and ISO 14001 consulting and training, but also auditing as lead auditor. So today I'm going to share with you my thoughts about internal audits. My presentation will last approximately 40 minutes, after which we'll do the 20-minute question and answer session. Well, let me be honest, it will take longer than 40 minutes, okay? Because I was too ambitious in trying to answer so many questions submitted before the webinar. Let's see. So if you would like to ask a question during the webinar, you don't have to wait for the Q&A session. You can ask it during my presentation. Of course, in the Q&A session, I'll also answer all of your remaining questions, okay? So let's see here, let's start. So internal audits are a very important tool to monitor a management system. This webinar today will cover the fundamentals of internal audit. So we'll speak about the process, the documents, and the auditors. Many questions about the auditors. And this webinar is tailored for professionals responsible for management systems and particularly internal auditors, okay? Now, let's see our agenda for today. So we'll discuss the following topics. First, we will discuss the audit program and see internal audits as part of a process. So everything starts when you, the auditor, receive an assignment, okay? So no audit should be performed without a checklist. That's the next topic. Then comes the agenda or audit plan or schedule. Then we will speak about the execution of the audit and the audit report. After the audit, you must do the follow-up, one for each audit and another at the completion of the program, okay? We'll speak about that. And at the end, we'll present the main challenges of the internal audits according to questions received by email before this webinar. Now, if you want, you can share in the chat what agenda topics are more relevant for you, okay? Okay, so I will then check your suggestions in terms of what topics are more relevant, but let us continue. So, as I said, let's see this the internal audits as a process, okay? So the cornerstone of your audit process is the audit program. So this program schedules all audits and their scopes over a specific period of time, okay? It's important to note that auditing all clauses of the standard and all parts within the scope of your management system every year is a requirement from your certification body. So if you read the standard, there's no requirement there saying that you need to audit everything yearly. No, but your certification body requires that. So when you accept that when you sign the contract for the maintenance of the management system. So when designing your program, it's essential to consider your reality and the capability of your internal auditors. So more experienced auditors can handle audits with wider scopes, allowing for fewer audits. Conversely, if you have less experienced auditors, it's advisable to conduct more audits with smaller scopes and spread throughout the year. And then for each audit, there is a process to follow. Okay, let's see that process. Okay. So you need to prepare the audit or plan the audit. So are you going to audit alone or with a team? Who will audit what? So you need to study, you as an auditor, you need to study the documentation, prepare a checklist, and prepare and send an audit agenda, okay, or audit plan to inform and get the auditee's agreement. You want to be sure that they are available for you, okay? Now, you perform the audit, okay, collect evidence through observation, interviews, your sensors, and records that help you fill the checklist. Okay, so you check records. Okay, and then you need to report the audit. So write a report based on the gathered evidence that transmit your conclusions after the audit. Okay, so one of the most critical aspects of the audit process is the management's role in acting upon non-conformities identified. So this includes developing corrections and corrective actions, implementing those actions, and checking their effectiveness. So this proactive approach is key to ensuring that the audit process leads to tangible improvements in the management system. So these steps, okay, prepare, perform, report, and follow up, these steps should be repeated for every audit of the audit program. After performing all and closing all audits, the audit manager should conduct a global evaluation and develop a revised audit program for the next year based on the performance and areas deserving closer monitoring. So a good practice is to audit more frequently those processes, those areas that have more non-conformities or have higher risks. Okay, so now let me leave here two links that you may consider checking later. So the first one is 5 main steps in the ISO 13485 internal audit. And the second one is ISO 9001, 5 main steps in ISO 9001 internal audit. Okay. So I will share with you here links for articles from several clauses, 9001, 27001, 13485, and so on. But normally, if you work with 27001, and if you look to an article regarding audits and ISO 13485, it is useful. Okay, it is useful. You will see. Now let's continue. Okay. So let's see the audit program in more detail. So creating an audit program. So it's like you align the audit program with business goals, compliance requirements, okay, and risk areas. You start by determining the scope of your audits, so the borders of your audit. So you can use clauses, processes, departments, locations, assets, or a mix. Well, what is important is auditing your whole management system in 1 year. My advice is use something that the auditees understand. Okay, so sometimes if you put their clauses, no one understands. No one knows what is included in clause 7 of ISO 27001. Okay, so then what we need to do is prioritize audits based on risk assessment. So use a risk-based approach to focus on critical processes. So consider regulatory importance and previous audit performance. Audit critical assets and high-risk areas more frequently, while less critical areas might be audited once every year. Both comprehensive audits of the entire system and targeted mini audits of specific processes are effective. So the choice depends on the organization's specific needs and resources. Okay, so yeah, you see here the audit team composition. So depend on your resources. So internal audit frequency and scope will depend on the number of internal auditors and their experience. So process criticality and risks. So and also previous audit findings. So the primary purpose of this program is to organize your resources. So you want to be sure that you are going to audit everything. When are you going to audit? We'll audit. What will be the scope? What will be included in each audit? You can also use the audit program to check the status of your internal audit. So for example, in this, we have something like this. We say, oh, March audit was done and January audit was done. Oh, and it's already closed. So the follow-up was already closed. Okay, so let me see. You can consider here these links for future reference. So ISO 45001 document template, annual program of internal audits. So you have here a template for developing the audit program. and then an article, what is the ISO 9001 audit program and how does it work? Okay, so I hope I was able with this to answer the question from Abdelaziz, Joseph, Julius, and Ali. One question, Steve asked, what is the best way to audit based on process or procedures and why? Well, my answer is I prefer audit processes, okay? Because problems normally occur in the flow between different departments, okay? And the process audit detects them more easily. However, it is also depending on the maturity of your management system. So it may be useful to have very focused audits just to check implementation, okay? Yeah, when we start, I will speak about that in a few slides, but when we start, it's important to check the implementation, and later the focus is more on the effectiveness of the audit, okay? Now, let's see now the qualification of auditors. Many questions about this topic. So many of you have asked if there are any limitations to being an internal auditor, if anyone can be an internal auditor, and if they need experience, if training is required. So what are the generic qualifications for being an internal auditor? Well, the internal auditor must know good auditing practices, okay? And must know the standard or standards, okay? Now, companies can establish specific requirements. Do they want auditors with a particular course done by a particular organization? Do they accept in-house training? Do they require a certain number of hours as a minimum? Do auditors need a minimum of experience? So for example, at least 3 audits as observers. So companies have the authority to set specific requirements, okay? It is up to the company, to your organization, not to the certification auditor, okay? Or do they accept that watching a video or reading a book plus an exam performed in-house is enough? Okay, it's up to your organization, okay? So one crucial requirement is that auditors should refrain from auditing their own work, okay? This is not because of any inherent dishonesty, but rather to prevent, okay, the oversight of systemic errors, okay? When we are part of a system, we often become blind to its flaws as they are already ingrained in the design. Just as we may no longer notice the cobwebs in our office, we may overlook systemic errors in our work. Now, some organizations for each internal audit designate a lead auditor, typically someone with more experience, to coordinate the audit team and serve as the communication channel with the auditees. So it is important to remember that learning to ride a bike, isn't achieved by reading a book or watching a movie. Similarly, becoming an effective internal auditor requires practice and guidance. So a classroom-trained auditor may feel intimidated when auditing a superior, or may misuse auditing to settle all scores or blame individuals instead of identifying systemic issues. This is where the lead auditor plays a crucial role, helping to calibrate the next generation of internal auditors and ensuring a systematic approach to auditing. So let me see here. So I leave here some links for you to future reference. What competence should an ISO 14001 internal auditor have? And another one, qualifications for an ISO 27001 internal auditor, okay? Now, if you're considering a career as an internal auditor, or simply want to expand your knowledge, 𝗍𝗲𝗏's internal auditor courses are an excellent resource. They provide comprehensive insights into the field, equipping you with the necessary skills and knowledge. Let me show you a glimpse of what these courses offer, okay? So it's something like this. So you come to this 𝗍𝗲𝗏 training, and you see we have here 9001 internal auditor course, 27001, 14001, 13485, 45001. Let's see, for example, 27001. Okay, so here we have, you see here, so You have the training videos. Then you can watch the videos for free. And then at the end, if you want to get the certificate, so you need to do the exam. Okay, so let's see here. No, it's here, the curriculum, the topic. So introduction to the standard, the planning phase, the risk management, the do phase. So let's, for example, organizing the internal audit. So these are the topics that you will see developed in the videos, okay? Organizing the internal audit procedure, annual audit program, audit plan, and you see. And let's see, and this also, it's accredited, ASIC accreditation. So, 𝗧𝗿𝗲𝗶𝗀𝗏 Expert Solutions, also international accreditation from ASIC. Okay, yeah, that's it. Okay, let me come back here. So you can see the details of the course here in this link. Let me see here. So Hassan asked, should audit internal team against main clauses for 10 or against the controls listed in the statement of applicability? If answer is both, then our internal technical IT teams don't have a clue about main clauses of the standard. We can only audit them against some of the controls relevant to them. So is this approach acceptable? Okay, so internal audit should cover both the clauses and the statement of applicability. Okay, so your internal audit team, they need some training in knowing the standard. Okay. Yeah. All right. So let's see here. Now, I like this slide a lot because it provides a big picture. So auditors don't do audits, okay, because they want or because they like it. They receive an assignment that includes 3 essential sources of information, okay? So auditors go into reality, and the scope of the audit sets the borders of that reality. What they do then is they collect audit evidence and compare that evidence with the audit criteria. This is important. So auditors should not use their personal standards or opinions as benchmarks as audit criteria. Auditors are not consultants. Auditors should use as reference a known and agreed document, a procedure, a work instruction, a piece of legislation, a specification, or a standard. Okay? So from that comparison, they develop audit findings and compare what they see with the audit audit findings. And audit findings indicate conformity or non-conformity. Audit findings may be positive or negative. And when auditors collect all audit findings, and compare what they see with the audit objective, okay, now they can develop the audit conclusion. Everything an auditor does is to gather objective information to report a reliable audit conclusion. Remember, the audit objective is the guiding light for an auditor's preparation, performance, and reporting. The purpose of an audit is to arrive at a solid conclusion related to the audit objective. So we received several questions about virtual and remote audits. So for example, Peter, perhaps this can be useful for you. So please consider these links that I will share now about the remote audits. So what are the benefits and barriers when performing remote audits? And a free webinar on demand about remote internal audits. We also received questions about what a second party is and what is a vertical audit. So please check later these articles, okay? So this is about the information that you receive, the assignment, okay? You know what is the audit scope, audit criteria, and the audit objective. Now, let's see what comes next. So when internal auditors receive the assignment, they are informed of the audit team composition, okay? And who the lead auditor is. They are informed about the borders, the parts of the management system that are to be audited. They are informed about the audit criteria to be used, okay? And they are informed about the audit objective, the purpose of the audit. I dare say, okay, that most companies don't think about audit objectives properly. Okay, what they do is they just copy, they just emulate what they see certification body auditors doing. Well, audit objectives should follow the life cycle of your management system. When you start your first internal audits, you may focus your attention on the design. So, is it according to standards or legislation? Is everything there? Are we missing something? Then you want to be sure that it is in place. Okay, so then you want to be sure that, okay, the documentation, the rules are being followed. So you audit conformity. Is it followed? Is it implemented? And when you're sure that the system is implemented, you can start focusing your attention more and more on effectiveness. Okay, so yeah, are objectives being achieved? Think with me, what does it matter to be very honest and follow procedure if it doesn't help the organization to achieve its objectives? You know, it's like playing music as the ship is sinking, okay? Now, Anna asked how to be effective internal and external auditor. And Gregory asked, what makes an internal audit successful, actionable, and ensure that it will satisfy the external auditors when they come do a surveillance audit? So being effective means achieving intended results efficiently and consistently. So in the context of auditing, effectiveness means determining real issues, okay, detecting actual risks, non-conformities, and areas for improvement. Means driving corrective actions, ensuring findings lead to meaningful improvement, not just reports, not just punching the clock, yeah, adding value, helping the organization enhance compliance, efficiency, and risk management. And of course, ensuring compliance, meeting applicable standards and regulatory requirements, and being reliable and credible. So yeah, providing objective, evidence-based conclusions that interested parties trust. Okay. Now, so you receive the assignment. Now you need to study the audit criteria. So you need to distill the requirements. Okay. So Karen asked, what questions should you ask? So at the end of the audit, you want to provide a solid audit conclusion that answers the implicit questions within the audit objective. So if you look into the audit objective, you can translate that audit objective into a set of implicit questions with different tiers. Okay, it's a cascade of more and more detailed. Okay, so guided by the audit objectives, because different objectives imply different lines of investigation, you need to study the audit criteria to start listing what you want to see, what you want to check, and whom you need to interview to collect audit evidence that supports raising your audit findings, the foundation of your audit conclusion. So let me show you my technique using clause 7.2 of ISO 27001 or 9001. So just to be attention to this is my way, okay? I don't pretend that this is the best way or the only way. It is just my way. And what you are seeing here for the standard can be applied for the law, for a regulation, can be applied for a procedure, for internal procedure. Okay, so in my approach, I read a clause, the audit criteria, and I highlight relevant verbs, okay? Because verbs are action. So in this figure, the underlines are in yellow. So the verbs, determine, ensure, take action, to acquire, evaluate. And then I highlight what is change or act by those relevant verbs. In this figure, the underlines are in green. And then I highlight any mandatory documents or records, okay? I think it's purple. I don't know. Okay. Now let's use these selected topics like determine necessary competence to be something like this. Okay. Determine necessary competence, ensure that these persons are competent, take actions to acquire. So, okay, this is just based on what on reading the document. Like that's why I say distilling, okay, the requirements. Now I translate these topics into questions that start with who, why, when, what, and how. So who can perform this job? Why can they perform this job? Why do you consider them competent to do this job? How can you be sure that those actions were effective? And okay, I will speak about this later, but don't forget, so you ask the question and people answer, but what people answer is not a fact, is a 𝗪𝗲𝗏. Don't forget to ask for evidence, for facts, okay? How can you be sure that those actions were effective? So there'll be some way of evidence, of an evidence that the actions were effective or not. So the questions in the checklist, you see, these questions here in the that you put in the checklist are for you, the auditor, not for the auditees. So you don't ask the exact questions. You don't just read. No, you must tailor them to each auditee during the audit. So while auditors can use the questions in the checklist as a guide during the audit, it's not necessary or recommended to repeat the exact questions verbatim to auditees, okay? So the questions in the checklist are written before the audit, okay? When you are in your office preparing the audit. Most of the time, what I do is I will silently read the question and use during the audit after, and when I'm reading silently during the audit, I'm also complementing the question with more information that I collected in previous interviews, in previous observations, okay? So what I do is I customize the question, okay? I don't repeat exactly what's there in the checklist. So that's why I say to you, beware of using cookie cutter checklists, okay? Different audit objectives require different lines of inquiry, questions, and evidence to be gathered, okay? I find it useful to include in my checklist, for example, tables. The number of rows is the number of samples I want to take during the audit. Remember, you want to write solid audit conclusions. You want to be a trusted auditor. So beware of the size of your sample. When I started doing audits, this is my main concern when I was writing the report. I would like to have a bigger sample. So think carefully about the sample. So how many people from different jobs and how many actions will you check to conclude about competence status in the organization? For example, most likely the population you are auditing is not homogeneous, okay, but rather heterogeneous, composed of different segments or strata, okay? So in this case, when facing a heterogeneous sample, auditors should seek to collect a representative sample of the population, taking into account this heterogeneity, okay? So one final comment on using checklists is working with a checklist gives me the freedom to focus on one topic. I can forget everything else. I can forget the other topics. I focus on that topic and I go as deep as I want. And when I finish a line of research, it's easy for me to jump to another topic. It's like a different anchor, okay? And the checklist is like, you know, it's like the astronaut's umbilical cord. It gives me the freedom to investigate, knowing that I can always return to a point where when I can recover the ability to control the sequence of the audit, okay? For me, it's fundamental, the checklist. So please consider these links for future reference: how to create a checklist for an ISO 13485 internal audit for your QMS, how to create a checklist for an ISO 9001 internal audit, the same for ISO 14001, the same for ISO 27001, and how to create an example, an ISO 9001-2015 human resources audit checklist, and how to create an internal audit checklist for your health and safety management system. Now, some question here. So Vayeda asked how to prepare for an audit without any process knowledge sharing. So if the auditee doesn't share with you any documentation before the audit, you have at least the standard, okay? And some compliance obligations. And even public information on the website. You can go to the website and check, and then see if they are acting according to what they have in their website, okay? And you can prepare your checklist with that. Of course, if during the audit, the auditee doesn't share information with you, no, there are no conditions to do the audit, okay? You need to say no, okay? I don't play like this, okay? So now, question here. Barbara asked, do you have an example internal audit checklist I can use? So, okay, I'll leave you the link for the 𝗪𝗲𝗴𝗲𝗀 ISO 27001, ISO 22301 internal audit toolkit, okay? And you have there, you can see there the example of a checklist, but we have also the same for 9001, 14001, 45001, you name it. Christina asked, how much time is typically required when performing an ISO 13485 audit? So how do I calibrate the timing? So after writing the audit checklist, the auditor knows where to go, who needs to be interviewed, what to see, what to check, and what sample size. And based on that, the auditor can estimate the time for each interview and collection of evidence, okay? That's why I only do the audit plan after doing the audit, the checklist, okay? So let's continue now, preparing an audit plan or agenda, okay? So you may have more than one auditor, checklist for auditor A, B, and C. So after developing the checklist, auditors know what they want to ask, what they want to see, who they want to interview, and where do they want to go. Now, they kind of develop a script, an itinerary, a flow, or a sequence of interviews, which seems to be the best. So based on this idea, what is the best sequence, the best approach to gather evidence and using it for the next interviews? So one more reason to customize checklists, okay? So now they have an idea about the time needed for each interview and the time for audit team meetings. And this can be compiled in an audit plan where you put the time, the schedule from this hour to that hour. Where do you want to go? The departments, or okay, the auditees that you want to interview. Who will be the auditor? Different auditors may act. Okay, the audit team may be split. And what topics? Again, or clauses, or processes, or assets, or departments, or areas. Yeah. So this can be combined in an audit plan, and the lead auditor sends this to the auditees to get their approval. Okay. So an audit agenda is a great communication and monitoring tool, useful for auditees so they can organize and plan their workday. So they are not there waiting for, okay, oh, I'm waiting for the auditors to come. No, they are full of work, and they want to use the time the best way. So, but when they accept our agenda, it means that from 10 to 10:30, 10 to 10:45, the auditor can demand attention. Okay, so and also essential for time management of the audit team. So I look into the agenda, say, oh, I need to hurry up because I'm late. Okay, so like today, I need to hurry up because I'm late. So please consider these links for future reference. So ISO 45001 document template, internal audit plan. The same for ISO 13485. And an article creating an ISO 14001 internal audit plan. Okay. Now, when you're preparing that sequence, be aware of this. Be aware of the audit sequence. When thinking about the best sequence for your audit, remember this. So look into this process map. Okay. You are auditing today. And when you are auditing today, you can audit what is happening right now. You can see what is happening, and you can audit what already happened. However, you cannot audit what will happen tomorrow. So, for example, even if you are manufacturing a product today, that doesn't mean you'll be able to deliver it in 1 month. Who knows? Also, looking back allows you, the auditor, to supply the information about the samples to be audited. So let's look at the flow of this process. Starting the audit on process within a project doesn't provide an opportunity to trace evidence back, while starting the audit at this providing service process, okay, allows you to go back and audit everything from the commercial activity, from the commercial commitment to development of the service, the preparation, the ordering of materials or services, and the service provision, okay? So then you can use information collected to audit, for example. So that's why I normally audit human resources at the end, because when I go to the human resources and I want to know, instead of asking a theoretical question, how do you know if a particular person can do this particular job? No, I went to the warehouse. So how do you know that John or Mary can do this job of warehouse supervisor? I talk to them, I interview them, so I have the names, I have all that information. So yeah. A logical sequence of interviews and observations facilitates communication between auditors and auditees. It allows auditors to gather relevant information from one interview and use it as a basis for discussions in subsequent interviews, okay? That's why I normally think of designing the schedule of an audit as writing the script of a play, okay? I want the sequence to have meaning. It's not a random walk for tourism, okay? Now, let's go. Now we sent the agenda. Now we are going to do the audit, okay? So during internal audits, not all organizations consider it necessary to have an opening meeting where the agenda is remembered and any last minute change is agreed upon. So I advise, please go with the opening meeting. Opening meeting is like, it's like singing the national anthem between a game. So it makes a break between before the audit and the audit. Okay, so breaks. And sometimes when you are doing internal audits, people know the colleagues. Okay, no, bring some formality. Okay, now gathering evidence is the main purpose of performing an audit. So gathering facts. The auditor wants to find evidence that helps him or her answer the questions on the checklist. So objective evidence should be collected through interviews, document verification, and observing activities and conditions in the audited areas. So consider the number of examples, the sampling that you should check to be confident of your conclusions. Just because the first asset audited had a vulnerability does not mean that all assets are compromised. Use traceability also to check the flow of things more naturally. Interviews. Okay, interviewing is a way of getting information from another person in response to the auditor's questions. It is the most important form of data an auditor can gather in auditing. You don't start right away with a battery of questions. Present yourself and put people at ease. Some may have never been audited and they may be scared. Who is this guy coming here? Okay, explain why you are doing the audit. Ask them things about what they are doing and rephrase their answers when you want to check you really understood their answer. Be polite, be diplomatic, okay? Ask to see things, and remember, what people say are not facts, but 𝗍𝗿𝗏 that must be corroborated. And in the end, explain your next step and say thank you, okay? Remember, do not ask the question as it is in the checklist. Try to connect with the auditee and adapt the question. And remember, elephants have memory. Auditors take notes, okay? So I use codified symbols, okay, to remark things and different colors for different audit days, okay? This allows me to, when I'm preparing the report, to navigate more easily in the report. Be aware that there are different kinds of questions, okay? Open, probe, closed, hypothetical. Avoid oriented, you are giving the answer that you want to hear. Avoid also multiple questions in a row where you are machine gunning, okay, the auditee, and be aware of perceptions, even honest perceptions that are a product of your experience and bias. Always remember the purpose of the audit and the fact that you have a reputation to keep. So is your understanding of the facts correct? Okay. And remember, auditors learn much more with what they hear than with what they ask. So listen. And again, in the end, be aware of auditee statics, okay, to avoid answers. So something like, to avoid answers, to forget to show records, to give excuses, very rational, for something not according to plan, interruptions, or even threats, okay? So, and one final thing is auditors should act like, Mr. Spock from Star Trek, calm, rational, and logical. When we auditors run away from that, we become easily locked in mind games, Oh, I'm the poor victim, the auditee. You are my hero, okay, the auditor. My boss is the villain. So, and this is not good for having facts, for evidence, for solid audit findings, okay? Now, after the audit, we need to write a report, okay? So it's important that the content and conclusions of the audit report do not come as a surprise. So if the auditor finds negative findings, he should mention them during the audit, okay? Even to allow the auditee to demonstrate that the auditor is wrong. So this is an example of the kind of content an audit report can have: an introduction, okay? Then the audit conclusions, and then a list of findings and improvement opportunities, okay? Don't forget the purpose of the audit. Your audit conclusions answer to the purpose of the audit. The audit was performed to be able to meet the audit objectives based on audit evidence, okay? After doing the audit, after considering, evaluating all the findings against the audit criteria, what do you as an auditor conclude? So the list of findings, okay, improvement opportunities. So one example of a negative finding, a non-conformity, can be something like, okay, according to ISO 9001-2015 clause 7.2, competence states, ensure that workers are competent. When reviewing competence records, human resources could not provide evidence that all new workers in areas considered critical by the company had system-related training. Oh, you are making things up. No, workers F and G performing relevant activities in Area 51 without evidence of effective training. So anyone can go there and check the records of auditors F and G to arrive at the same conclusion of this audit team. So here we have the must, the audit criteria. Here we have what was found, and here we have the proof, okay? You are not making things up, okay? So let me leave here. So an advice about writing the report: I like to write a report as soon as possible, okay? Writing the report as soon as possible is good for recording evidence that is still fresh in our mind. We always forget to write everything in the notes, and then put the report to rest for some time. And that rest gives us the distance to fine tune what we want to say after, our blood is cooler, okay? Now, please consider these links for future reference: ISO 45001 document template, internal audit report. What is the ISO 14001 internal audit report and how to create it? Writing a good QMS internal audit report, and how to write a good ISO 9001 audit nonconformity, okay? And Mohammed asked, want to know the reporting system and its presentation to the auditees and top management. So, by the way, all ISO management standards regarding internal audits include this requirement: ensure that the results of the audits are reported to relevant management, okay? Management cannot say, oh, I was not informed. Carlos didn't inform me about that, okay? Management can block, so management cannot say I was not informed. Management, when they see the proposed corrective actions, they can block bureaucratic and or costly corrective actions. Management can block answers to findings that are out of contract requirements. For example, normally the information for top management is not detailed or technical, is translated into the big picture and any situation relevant to the strategic commitments of the organization. Now, one question Caroline asked, should we have one report for the whole company or one per department? Oh, it's up to your organization, okay? Yeah. And Susan asked, must internal audit reports contain identified non-conformities even when none are identified? No. Your report must provide a trusted picture of the organization situation. If there are no non-conformities, you can include the audit trail, the list of conformities, the list of evidence checked. So for example, sometimes organizations invite me to do internal audits, and some organizations, they have a mature system and the system is working. I cannot find any non-conformity, but I find some opportunity for improvement. But when I don't find any non-conformity, I write a long list of all the conformities. I want to be sure that the certification auditor that comes and checks my audit report arrives at the conclusion, okay, the internal auditor could not find any non-conformity, but he did his job, not because he was asleep or not because he was lazy. No, he did his job. He didn't find any non-conformity. So yeah. Okay. Whoa. Really. Whoa. Need to move. So you get the audit findings when you compare audit evidence with audit criteria. Okay. Audit findings may be negative and we have non-conformities, or maybe positive and we have conformities. Okay. And perhaps best practice. You may also have opportunities for improvement. And attention, an opportunity for improvement is not a tidy non-conformity. It is presented, is an information, and no response is required. It is a suggestion based on the auditor's experience or perspective, okay? It may be something related to inefficient practices or maybe something negative but unrelated to the audit scope or criteria, okay? It is optional whether the auditees do something with it. Some organizations classify non-conformities as major or minor. A major non-conformity is the failure to fulfill a requirement. Okay. Oh, you don't evaluate. The effectiveness of actions to improve competence. Oh, it's not. We don't do that. It's not in our system. Or yes, it's in our system, but most of the time we don't do it. Okay. Process procedure completely fallen apart, or several minor non-conformities related to the same process or procedure. Okay. All non-conformities require a correction, the elimination of the non-conformity. So the correction would be train workers F&G according to the competence requirements in their job description. Corrective action would be, what is so wrong in our system that workers can start working without the necessary training? Okay, so first find the root cause, then eliminate the root cause. So links here to 2 articles, using internal audits to drive real improvements in ISO 14001. And one of the articles that I like the most in 𝗪𝗲𝗲, major versus minor non-conformities in the certification audit. Okay. And so now the follow-up. Okay, we're almost at the end. So Julieta asked how to execute the findings after the internal audit. So let's see, the internal audit process doesn't end with the audit report. Following up on a previous audit is a crucial step to ensure that negative findings were the target of work and that work was effective, showing that the organization is improving. So the follow-up confirms that the correction was made. Okay, the non-conformity was eliminated, okay, and corrective action was initiated. But the real corrective action, okay, focus on root causes, not symptomatic, okay, actions. And then that the corrective action was implemented and on time and was effective, okay. And following up on the program involves looking into the whole set of audits included and taking a big picture. What have we learned about our organization? What kind of value did audits add to the organization this year or last year? What was okay? What was not okay? And what needs to be changed in next year's program? Okay. All right. Main challenges. Based on the emails received before this webinar, almost 80 emails, almost 80 questions, and thank you very much for your questions. These are the main challenges regarding how to perform an ISO internal audit. Okay? So presented from the questions with a higher frequency to the lower frequency. So auditor competence, we already mentioned that. Preparing a checklist, we already mentioned that. Preparing an audit program, yes, already mentioned that. Prepare an audit report, yep, then that. Preparing people for the audit, okay? I will present a slide about that during the Q&A, okay? So, as I said, we received 80 questions, so there was a long tail of topics not mentioned here, but I tried to answer as much as possible to all questions. The only question that I didn't answer was very specific, so how to audit risk, how to audit management review. Okay, so this I couldn't answer that here. So let's go to the conclusion. So to conclude, internal audits can be a moment to stop and reflect upon what is really happening in your management system, and to learn how you can use 𝗪𝗲𝗲𝗏's internal auditor courses. Here's the link with more details. Okay, I'll also send you now the meeting link to schedule a call with our toolkit expert. He'll explain you how toolkit works and show you any document you'd like to see. Okay, and let's go to the Q&A. Okay, 12 minutes late. Yeah, oh, sorry. Okay, so before we begin with this questions and answer session, just to mention that you can also ask me anything about audits directly. Just send me an email and I'll answer as quick as I can, okay? So if you want to leave before this Q&A session is over, if you come through Zoom, please fill in the short survey that will open right after you leave the webinar. If you are coming from LinkedIn, okay, we will send you the survey. Okay, let's see. Some questions, okay? Whoa. Let me just go to the questions before the webinar, and then I go to the questions that you are, 26 questions right now, my God. So Barbara asked, how should a small company answer climate change when you don't own buildings, just rent best green buildings available? And Manuel asked, auditing climate change. So as an auditor, I act this way. I want to check if the audited organization considered, okay, the nature of the company's activity, okay. So is there anything? So if you're an agricultural company, for example, if you work with wood or something like that, okay. If the organization considered the interested parties' expectations, like regulation, like customers. Also, the company location and infrastructure, so exposed to critical environmental risks such as floods or other extreme weather phenomena that can directly compromise the operation. And what was the conclusion regarding the impact on operations and the QMS? That's how I do it, okay? Now, Christian asked, is it possible to perform, I think it's AI, the KI in German, I think it's AI, supported mini audits. And Myron asked, what's the impact of AI on implementing ISO 9000 audit? So yeah, it's like this. I think AI impact will be huge. So with AI, we can analyze ISO standards and generate customized audit checklists based on organizational needs, okay? AI tools can gather and categorize relevant documents, records, and logs for auditors, reducing manual effort. AI can scan organizational processes and systems in real time to detect non-conformities and potential compliance risks before audits. Machine learning algorithms can identify patterns in audit logs, flagging inconsistencies or potential non-conformities, okay? AI can draft, audit reports summarizing key findings, trends, and risk areas. Can help identify underlying causes of non-conformities by analyzing historical audit data. This is one of the first situations that I use, for example, with the environment or something like this. AI can not as an auditor, but as a consultant. AI can monitor the implementation of corrective actions and send reminders to responsible personnel. Yeah. So I already made some experiments with an AI agent as auditor asking questions to an auditee on real time. So we will see big changes in the future. I think we will have a hybrid auditor, human powered by AI. Okay. Ali asked, can an ISO audit be performed before ISO implementation and used for gap analysis? No. An ISO audit cannot be performed before the management system is implemented, so there will be no system to audit. However, a gap analysis can be conducted beforehand to assess readiness and identify areas needing development before a formal audit. Okay, so how do you prepare employees for the interviews? Questions from Abdelaziz, Stacy, and Alexandra. So what I do is I segment people in target groups. So one thing, it could be top management, middle management, office people, shop floor people. So segment people in target groups, answer to questions like why certification is important, what is a certification audit, how can they help, what may be asked. So prepare the premises, okay, explain how they will be involved in the audit, calm them, okay, make them aware that auditors are trying to verify compliance, not to find something wrong. Let your colleagues know what the auditors might ask, and so simulate questions and answer. So I have this list of do's and don'ts. So share the verifications with your colleagues. So don't try to do everything yourself. So the last minute verifications. Review and share the audit agenda. Don't surprise your colleagues. Be polite. Don't argue with auditors. Explain. Answer when you are asked. Don't answer for someone else. This is very important. Don't answer for someone else. Sometimes people want to be nice, because the colleague is not there, and they may provide a wrong answer because they don't know, because the procedure changed, and because they are not the ones doing, they don't know. So don't answer for someone else. Explain again. Don't think that the auditor will understand easily. Be honest and cooperate. Do not hide things from the auditor. Be honest. Yeah. Check your own documents. Don't trust everything will be okay. Check your workplace. Don't give a bad first impression to auditors. Okay. So don't forget to conduct some mock audits. Okay. Helps employees understand real audit dynamics. Use simulation to identify weak points and correct them beforehand. Encourage employees to practice responding to questions confidently. Okay. So let me see here now some questions. So Thomas asks, impartiality, objectivity of internal auditors, how should this be organized? So ideally, so you don't audit your own job. Okay. I know that the language in ISO is changing. In the beginning, it was independence. Now it's impartiality. Okay. Because they recognize that small company, they may have some difficulties in having more than one auditor, and that auditor at some point will audit his or her own job. So I advise, don't audit your own job. If you do it, so try to show some impartiality. So leave there include in the records your checklist, for example, to show that you what kind of evidence you were looking for. Yeah. Maj asked, which parts of these will be audited by the external body? Oh, the external body will audit everything. Okay. The external body will audit everything. Okay. So regarding internal audits, we'll audit everything. We'll audit the qualification of auditors. We'll audit we'll audit the program. okay, we'll audit the audit results, and from the audit results, we'll audit the follow-up. Okay, of course, if your company says that we don't have records, we don't keep records on the checklist, okay, the auditor cannot ask to see the checklist because it's not a record. It's not a requirement from the 9001. It's not even a requirement in ISO 1911. So yeah, so if you go to the standard, so what is mandatory is the program, the audit results. So okay, the treating the non-conformities and the corrective actions, and the qualification, the competence of the auditors. Okay, all the rest will be according to what is in your procedure. Question from Nancy. Our difficulty is influencing the assessees to resolve non-conformities timely. How do you suggest obtaining conformance without authority? My instinctive answer is to present to the top management and saying, okay, you want to be certified or you want to keep certification, but you don't have, but you don't solve or close the non-conformities in a timely manner. So okay, what is happening? So I would try to show what can be the impact of the current non-conformities. Okay, to show that it's not because the auditor raise the non-conformity, but because the non-conformity has an impact today or potential impact tomorrow in the performance of the organization. It's some organizations have indicators regarding the time needed for closing the non-conformities. Okay. Okay. So question from Sa, we have multiple sites. Can quality from site 1 audit site 2? So if they are not auditing their own job, yes, they can do that. Yeah. Tamara asks, are audit qualifications transferable? I have lead auditor, but would like to audit. So you have lead auditor for 13485, but would like to audit 27001. Okay, so you don't need to learn good auditing practices. You just need to have some evidence that you know the standard ISO 27001. Yeah, that's it. Okay, you just need to. So if you were working with 𝗧𝗿𝗲𝗀 courses, you need just to do the foundations course for ISO 27001. Okay. Louis asks, are all the audit work papers collected by the certification body or only the audit report? So as I already answered this in another, it's like this. So they don't collect. They don't collect and take copies with them. No, they can check. Okay, they can check for sure the audit report because the standard mentions it's mandatory to have the audit results. It's mandatory to have an audit program. They can check the audit program. And of course, if you have non-conformities, they can check the resolution of non-conformities because clause 10.2 mentions that. Now, they read your procedure if you have an internal audit procedure. And if your internal audit procedure mentions other things, okay, they can check that. Of course, they will also want to check if the auditors are competent. Okay, yeah. Majd asks, who prepares the audit objective and checklist? Okay, the audit objective is prepared normally by the systems manager. So it's not the auditor that prepares the audit objective. So it's something that the audit object, that's why I say receive the assignment. Okay, the auditor receives the assignment. Oh, I need to do this audit. The scope is this one, the audit objective is this one, the audit criteria is this one. Okay. I have an assignment to do. And the checklist is prepared by the auditor, okay? Is auditor's responsibility. Sandra asked, we have 14 business units under our certification scope. Do we have to perform an internal audit in each area on an annual basis where we look at each clause, or can we spread it out over the 3-year certification cycle as long as we hit each of the 14 departments at least once in this 3-year period? I would say, Sandra, I would contact the certification body and look what do they accept. Yeah, what do they accept? Okay, because certification bodies, they do that. So they audit a sample. They audit the headquarters and a sample of the sites. But I would say that each business unit would need to be audited every year. Okay, but it's my opinion. Okay, not non-fundamented without any more information. Okay. Errol. Oh, I know Errol. Hi, Errol. I gather the questions must be open questions to determine the flow of the process. Yeah, we start with open questions, and then we can for example, we start with open questions, and then okay, that in the answer we see something that we need to develop in more detail, when we can ask the probe questions, and then at the end we want to be sure that we understood. We can ask a closed question. Yeah. Hi, Errol. No, Damien asked, would you find that it is more effective to audit individual departments as opposed to an entire company at once? I would say that it's different. Okay, it depends on the auditor's experience. Okay, and it depends also on what is the purpose, the audit objective. Okay, as I mentioned before, sometimes sometimes I would say, I remember a book that I read in the 80s that was a very good book, says that normally problems don't happen inside the department. They happen between departments. Okay, that's, you mentioned the silo mentality and things like that. So I think it's so if when I was less experienced auditor, yeah, it's much better to audit an individual department. Okay, I can do a very good job than there. Okay, but when I think about the effectiveness of the whole organization, it's better to audit more than one department, to audit processes, or to audit the entire company at once. Another question from Louis: competence of all control owners or only of the security officers? So all people that have a responsibility for one or more controls. If the company has good hiring practices, is it assumed that the person hired, example, the network engineer, is competent? No, it's like this. You don't need to have all the people, okay? I believe what you're saying is that you work with ISO 27001, Louis. It's like this. ISO 20 competence requirements apply to the persons or to the roles that are relevant to the management system. Okay, in your case, to your ISMS. Okay, so you say this role, this function is relevant to the ISMS. Okay, so you need to determine what are, in a job description or another document, you need to determine what are the competence requirements. Okay, so and it's up to your organization to determine. Okay, it's up to your organization to determine what are the competence requirements. And the same network engineer in different companies may need different competences because of the software, the hardware, the requirements of customers is different. The flow, the volume of information is different. So yeah, but it's that those functions, those people that act in areas that the organization consider relevant to the ISMS. What if auditee is more knowledgeable than you? Okay, no problem. What's the problem? No problem, because you are not testing the auditee. Okay, you are asking questions and looking for evidence that the organization is in compliance with the management system. So no problem with that. So Gregory asked how many internal audits need to be performed each year for ISO 27001. So you need to, if you are certified or if you want to be certified, you need to audit all your organization, okay, all parts of your ISMS once per year, okay. Of course, if you have, you don't need to audit all assets. You audit a sample of those assets, okay. Let's see. So Ergin is asking, can management system and compliance be done effectively at the same time? So auditing management system and compliance be done effectively at the same time? I think so. Yeah. So for example, if I'm auditing ISO 14001, I audit the management system, and I also audit compliance obligations. I also audit the evaluation of compliance. So I think yes, we can do that. I audit if they are, for example, monitoring according to what is in the legislation or regulation. Yeah, I think we can do that. So how do I get? Do the auditors need to generate the score table based on audit reports conclusion just for comparison with previous audits? Is it a good way to measure the audit effectiveness? So do the auditors need to generate the score table based on audit report conclusion just for comparison with previous audits? Is it a good way to measure the audit effectiveness? So this is a question from Mozin. Okay. It's like this. What you are saying, it's a good practice. Okay. It's a good practice. Normally not done by the auditor, but by the audit manager or the responsible for the management system. So if you compare different audits throughout the year or along the several years, you can see if there are any trends. Okay, you can see if there are any trends. You can see if a closed non-conformity resurfaces again later. So that means it was not effective. After all, the corrective action was not effective because resurfaced again. So not as a way of measuring audit effectiveness, okay, because measuring audit effectiveness would be, okay, so a way, it depends on how do you measure, what are your objectives for the audit, okay, or for your audit system. So for example, if I say, I want my internal audits to be very demanding, to avoid critical or major non-conformities during certification or surveillance audits, okay? Based on that, what I can say is that, okay, if we avoid that, our internal audits are effective. Okay, but that will depend. So what you wrote, Mozin, it's a good practice, but not to measure audit effectiveness. Okay, perhaps to audit follow-up effectiveness. Okay, so we have many questions still. Just okay, some 2 or 3 minutes more. One interesting question from Jeffrey. What if the auditee is rude and not provide evidence? Hey, Jeffrey, once I had an audit where the auditee, the production manager, threatened me. Also, my house is near the plant, so some months ago we had an audit from some German auditors. I didn't like them, so I went. This is true. I went to fetch my gun and I sent them away from here. So what I say is, okay, if you are rude, if you do not provide evidence, okay, in my report, I say, I could not audit this, and this because the auditee didn't provide the evidence. Case closed, no problem. And we move on, no problem with that, okay? 𝗂𝗲𝗶𝗀𝗶 asked, is it acceptable to not have the interview calls with the auditees and close off, for example, a session purely based on collected evidence via self-check, available documents, recorded tickets? This is not a very good practice for an audit, okay? Because let's say that you do that, okay? You don't interview anyone, the auditees, and you collected evidence and you raise a non-conformity. And the organization, the company may say, or the auditee, the manager of the area may say, oh, this is not true. This is not true. Because in the meantime, they corrected the situation because they have a camera and they saw what you were looking for and they correct the situation. No, as an auditor, I don't want to be alone in the company. I want always a witness with me, an escort with me. I want a witness, okay? So it's not a good practice because they can do that, or because I may see A and read B, okay? I may, because it's not not something that I normally, I'm an independent auditor. I'm not working my own work, so I may be interpreting things wrongly. So I want someone, yeah, okay? All right. Now, I would like to continue with you here. So interesting, these questions. But I will try to answer during the weekend. Okay. I will try to answer during the weekend to all the questions that I could not answer during the webinar. Okay, just one more. This last one. Okay, question from Senegal. If we get major non-conformities in certification audit, do we get disqualified and have to redo all over again the entire process? No. So if you have a major non-conformity, what you need to do is you need to correct the non-conformity. You need to do a corrective action. You need to send evidence, or you need to inform normally what we do is we need to inform the certification auditors that the corrective action, we send the corrective action, that we intend to do, they approve, and then they come to check if the non-conformity can be closed, okay? And if the non-conformity can be closed, they can recommend us for certification. The difference is, if we have a minor non-conformity, we send them what we are going to do. If they accept, they say, okay, we recommend you for certification, and next year we will go there and see if we can close that non-conformity. That's the difference, okay? So I think I still have here 17 questions, so I will answer during the weekend, okay? Sorry, but I cannot. Let's see. Okay, so just to finish, I will not show this, but okay, you have there the slide. You can see this is the pitfalls of internal auditors, okay, by what I can think it's by frequency, okay. Now yeah, okay, so I'm sorry, our time is up. I'm sorry there was no time to answer all of your questions, but the purpose of this webinar is to give you a general overview of the internal audit, not to go into a detailed discussion. So again, you can ask me anything about ISO 9001 directly by email. You can also download this presentation deck from our website, or take a look at video tutorials and documentation templates. We'll send you the email with all necessary links. Finally, if you join this webinar through Zoom, you'll see a short survey. So I would kindly ask you to spend a minute to fill it in. The recording of this presentation will be available in a few hours. You will receive a link to the recording. If you joined the webinar through LinkedIn and YouTube, I forgot YouTube. some minutes ago. You will receive a link to the short survey now, and the link to the presentation will be posted on our event page in a few minutes. That will be all. Thank you for your participation, and I hope you enjoyed this webinar. And thank you so much for your questions. Have a nice day.